There's a particular kind of mental prison that opens its doors every night when your head hits the pillow. Suddenly your mind becomes a courtroom where you replay every conversation, a planning committee for tomorrow's worries, and a movie theater showing worst-case scenarios on endless repeat. What most people don't understand about nighttime rumination is that it's not actually about the thoughts themselves. It's about the timing. During the day, you're distracted by external demands, moving through tasks and interactions that keep your mental activity focused outward. But the moment you create stillness and quiet, your mind treats the space like a dumping ground for every unprocessed worry, unresolved conversation, and anticipated problem it's been collecting throughout the day. Your nervous system, finally given permission to relax, paradoxically becomes hypervigilant about everything you haven't addressed. This nocturnal mental spinning often begins innocently. Maybe you remember something you forgot to do, or start planning tomorrow's schedule. But once the rumination engine starts, it builds momentum like a snowball rolling downhill. One worry connects to another, which triggers a memory, which spawns a fear about the future, which circles back to analyzing a conversation from last week. Before you know it, you're 3 hours into mental gymnastics that accomplish nothing except stealing your sleep and leaving you exhausted for the next day. The pattern becomes particularly frustrating because the harder you try to stop thinking, the more persistent the thoughts become. You tell yourself to just sleep, but your mind interprets this as an urgent message to resolve everything right now. You try forcing your thoughts to be quiet, but forced mental silence often creates more noise. You attempt to think about something else, but your mind boomerangs back to the original worry spiral with renewed intensity. The very effort to control your thoughts gives them more power over your attention. The hidden cost of chronic nighttime rumination extends far beyond just feeling tired the next day. When your sleep is consistently interrupted by mental noise, your emotional regulation suffers, making you more reactive, less resilient, and more prone to anxiety during waking hours. Your problem-solving abilities become compromised because your brain hasn't had adequate rest to process and integrate information from the day. You start dreading bedtime itself, creating anxiety about sleep that makes the problem worse. This sleep disruption also affects your relationship with your own mind during the day. When you know that nighttime means hours of uncontrollable thinking, you begin to fear your own mental activity. You might find yourself avoiding quiet moments throughout the day because you've learned to associate stillness with unwanted thoughts. This creates a cycle where you never give your mind opportunities to process things naturally, leading to even more buildup that gets dumped into your bedtime hours. Living with this pattern also disconnects you from the natural restoration that sleep is meant to provide. Instead of experiencing your bedroom as a sanctuary for rest and renewal, it becomes another place where you feel victimized by your own mental activity. You lose trust in your ability to find peace, which affects not just your sleep, but your overall sense of well-being and competence in managing your inner experience. There's a fundamental truth about the mind that changes everything once you understand it. Thoughts are not problems to be solved, but mental events to be witnessed. Your nighttime mind isn't malfunctioning when it generates thoughts. It's doing what minds do. The problem isn't the thinking itself, but your relationship to the thinking. When you treat every thought as urgent and important, requiring immediate attention and resolution, you create the very mental agitation that keeps you awake. This understanding opens a completely different approach to nighttime rumination. Instead of fighting your thoughts or trying to force them to stop, you can learn to change your relationship with them. Thoughts don't have to be engaged with just because they arise. You can observe mental activity without being consumed by it, the same way you might notice sounds outside your window without feeling compelled to investigate each one. The key is recognizing that nighttime thoughts rarely offer genuine insights or solutions. They're usually recycled daytime concerns presented with artificial urgency. Your mind, in its effort to be helpful, treats bedtime like a problem-solving session. But problems are rarely solved effectively when you're tired, and your critical thinking abilities are compromised. Most late-night solutions seem less brilliant in the morning light, while the problems that seemed urgent at midnight often feel manageable during the day. Start by creating a transition ritual that signals to your mind that thinking time is over and rest time has begun. This might involve writing down persistent thoughts on paper, not to solve them, but to acknowledge them and set them aside until tomorrow. This external brain dump helps your mind release the feeling that it needs to keep everything active in working memory. The simple act of writing thoughts down often reveals how repetitive and unproductive much of the mental activity actually is. Practice the technique of thought labeling rather than thought engagement. When you notice your mind spinning, instead of getting caught up in the content, simply note planning thoughts, worry thoughts, or replay thoughts. This creates distance between you and the mental activity, reducing its hypnotic power over your attention. You're not suppressing the thoughts. You're just not feeding them with continued engagement. Develop a physical anchor for your attention that's more compelling than mental activity. This might be focusing on the sensation of your body sinking into the mattress, following the rhythm of your breath, or doing a progressive muscle relaxation where you consciously release tension from each part of your body. The goal isn't to empty your mind, but to give your attention somewhere more restful to land than in thought loops. Use the power of acceptance rather than resistance when thoughts arise. Instead of fighting the mental activity, try responding with gentle acknowledgement. Yes, mind, I see you're worried about tomorrow's meeting. Thank you for caring. We'll address this when we're rested and thinking clearly. This approach often causes thoughts to settle more quickly than forceful attempts at suppression. As you begin to practice these techniques, something shifts in your nighttime experience. The thoughts don't necessarily stop arising, but they lose their grip on your attention. You develop the ability to notice mental activity without being pulled into it. The way you might notice a radio playing in another room without feeling compelled to listen to every word. Your bed becomes a place of rest rather than a battlefield with your own mind. Sleep begins to feel like a natural transition rather than a struggle against mental noise. You learn to trust that your mind will process things more effectively after rest than it ever could during tired, late-night rumination sessions. Problems that seemed insurmountable at midnight often reveal obvious solutions in the morning when your mental resources are restored. You develop a different relationship with uncertainty and unfinished business, recognizing that not everything needs to be resolved before you can rest. Some things genuinely can wait until tomorrow, and your sleep-deprived attempts to solve them aren't helping anyone. You learn to distinguish between genuine urgency and the artificial urgency that tired minds create around everyday concerns. Most importantly, you reclaim your bedroom as a sanctuary for restoration rather than a place where your mind torments you with endless loops of unproductive thinking. Sleep becomes what it was meant to be, a time for your system to restore, integrate, and prepare for tomorrow's challenges with renewed energy and clarity. The peace you find isn't about having a perfectly quiet mind, but about developing a healthier relationship with mental activity. You learn that you don't have to be the passive victim of every thought that arises, that you have more control over your attention than you realized, and that rest is possible even when your mind wants to keep working. So, if something in this message speaks to your own experience of nighttime mental spinning and the exhaustion that follows, leave a comment with the word rest. Let it be a commitment to yourself that you're ready to try a different approach, to treat your thoughts as mental events rather than urgent problems, to reclaim your sleep from the rumination that's been stealing it. And if these words feel like the practical guidance you've been seeking for your restless nights, subscribe. There's more here for you, not about forcing your mind to be quiet, but about learning to work skillfully with mental activity, creating the conditions where natural rest can emerge, and remembering that peaceful sleep is your birthright, not something you have to earn by solving every problem first.